الله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الولي الحكيم، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين، أرواحنا له فداء. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Inshallah, before we begin our majlis tonight, we just request that everyone come forward, because it seems that people are coming in, and we fill up the gaps so that we'll have room and it won't create much of a disturbance as folks are arriving and coming in. Salawat. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, I give all of you my greetings and also convey the greetings of my family to our community, our family here in Austin. And then I also give my condolences on the past occasions which we have been commemorating: the shahadat of Imam Hussein and his family, his Ahlul Bayt, and the upcoming shahadat that we will commemorate on Monday, which is the shahadat of Rasulullah and of Imam al-Hassan alayhim afdhalu salatu wasalam. As usual, in our discussions on the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdhalu salatu wasalam, in these moments that we are afforded an opportunity to speak on the life of the Ahlul Bayt or commemorate the shahadat, the martyrdom of Ahlul Bayt, it is important for us to reflect upon their lives and to understand the mission of Ahlul Bayt, and particularly as the shahadat in commemoration of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa sallam, that it is upon us, then we must reflect upon that mission, that why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent to us the Prophet of Allah. And not just any Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the final Prophet, the seal of the Anbiya, the one who there is no Prophet after him. Or as the Prophet himself, he states, أَنَا كُنْتُ نَبِيًّا وَآدَمْ بَيْنَ الْمَاءِ وَالطِّينِ, that he is the first of prophets and the last of prophets, that he was a prophet and he was designated this position in Alim al-Dar, in the world before this world, that he was granted that position. And so we, again, are in that ummah of this prophet. So what is his mission? And how well have we held to that mission, understood the mission of Rasulullah, and have lived our lives by that mission for which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent him? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Jum'ah, and this is a surah, a chapter of the Quran, chapter 62 of the Quran. The verse that I recited in the beginning, verse 2 of Surah Al-Jum'ah. Surah Al-Jum'ah is a chapter of the Quran which is highly recommended for us to read. It's highly recommended for us to read. Every week we should read this. It is recommended to read in Jum'ah, Salatul Jum'ah itself, the Friday congregation prayer. But even if a person did not read it, because of course it's mustahab to read, not obligatory, not wajib, that if you did not read it, you've committed a sin, but rather it is mustahab muta'akkad, meaning it is highly emphasized. So either read it in Salatul Jum'ah, or in fact, if you want to observe the complete recommendation of reciting Surah Al-Jum'ah, in fact, we will see that we will recite it 7 times in 1 week. And 7 times in that 1 week in the span of 2 days. How so? Because it is recommended to recite Surah Al-Jum'ah in your Maghrib and Isha Salat on Thursday night. So in Salatul Maghrib on Thursday night, Surah Al-Jum'ah. In Salatul Isha on Thursday night, Surah Al-Jum'ah. In each and every Salat on Friday, your Fajr, the Salatul Jum'ah if you pray the Salatul Jum'ah, or your Salatul Dhuhr if you haven't prayed your Salatul Jum'ah. Asr, Maghrib and Isha to recite Salatul Jum'ah. This verse is that, or this chapter is that important. Because in this chapter of the Quran, one of the things that we at least come to understand is the mission of Rasulullah. The reason for which, again, we should understand that why we are following the Rasulullah. Why are we, or at least what should we gain from that mission of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He clearly points this out in the second verse of Surah Al-Jum'ah. Imagine if you're reciting this 7 times, that again, you're reminding yourself 7 times that, look, this is the mission of Rasulullah. This is what I should understand, and this is what I should attach myself to, and this is what I should, again, set as my standard, my criterion, my means, or the means by which I assess myself as one who claimed to be the follower of Rasulullah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states, هُوَ الَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ, that He is the one who has sent forth a messenger among the people who are ummiyin, and we'll discuss this term ummi, that what exactly does it mean. But nonetheless, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent a prophet among a people, to a people. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. And He has been sent with this mission, that He is to recite, He is to convey the signs, the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to those people to whom He has been revealed and He has been sent to. Recite those verses with the purpose that yuzakkihim, that He will purify them. And He will teach them the book, He will teach them the revelation, and He will teach them wisdom, understanding. وَإِنْ كَانُوا مِنْ قَبْلُ لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. Although these individuals, these people to whom He was sent, they may have been astray, they may have been lost, without guidance. So this is the mission of Rasulullah. And that mission, as we see and we understand from the second verse of Surah Al-Jum'ah, it has 2 components. One is the Prophet, or you say 3 components if you include Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is, again, understood, am I saying that Allah has sent this Prophet, and He has sent him to a people. For those individuals, again, to receive and to be receptive of that which the Prophet has been sent for. That if he has been sent to recite, يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ, to recite, to convey the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then those individuals, those who are, again, among those ummiyin, that is their responsibility and duty, again, to listen. He's been sent to teach them, to purify them. So therefore, those who are coming and who are following the Prophet, it is their responsibility and duty to, again, to purify themselves. If he has come to teach them the book and teach them wisdom, then it is upon those individuals who are following the Prophet, again, to learn the book, to obtain wisdom. Otherwise, then it is a one-way action that he's reciting, but no one's listening. He's teaching, but no one's learning. He's trying to purify, but no one's becoming purified. So this action, and what is intended here, is that there is two sides to this mission, or two things that should be accomplished. One is the conveying of that message. And the other thing that must be accomplished is the reception of that message, of that teaching, of that purification, of the wisdom that is being imparted upon us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He states that He has sent this Prophet, and this Prophet is from among the people. هو الذي بعث في الأميين, those who are ummi. And according to, again, if you refer to the translation, some translations say that those who are illiterate, those who are unlearned, those who are unlettered. But this does not really convey the true understanding of ummi, because again, the Prophet, he is called a Nabiyyu Ummi. That was he unlettered? Was he uneducated? Was he illiterate? And unfortunately, some, they attribute the Prophet in this light. They say, oh yeah, he's unlearned, he didn't have any education. But what is meant by this, particularly when it is related to the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is that he was not educated by any person, individual, by any human being. That no one came to the Prophet, sat the Prophet down and says, no, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you Alif, Ba, Ta. I will teach you how to read. I will teach you how... This was not done for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That his education, his learning, his understanding was directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ummi, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent a prophet to these individuals who were ummi. And as we see from the second verse of Surah Al-Jum'ah, that those individuals to whom the Prophet was sent, they had two qualities about him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He points out two qualities. One, He says that they're ummi. هُوَ الَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ. That those individuals, they were ummi, and they were also not on the right path. وَإِنْ كَانُوا مِنْ قَبْلُ لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. So they had these two qualities and traits about them. Ummi, and as it is stated in the commentaries of the Quran, as it is stated within many of the riwayat as well, that ummi, again, it is attributed to the people of Mecca. On one hand, because yes, the percentage of those individuals who were there, who lived, they were not able to read or write. Yes, there was a high, you could say, illiteracy rate, as we call it. call it. But among them, there were people who were able to read, who were able to write. Among them, you had individuals who are poets, and some of them very skilled poets. And even among those who couldn't read or write, you had very skilled poets. And they would recite poetry. They would create poetry. And if they could not write it themselves, they had someone else to write it. If they could not recite it themselves, they would have someone else to recite it, because there were many competitions. As we say, poetry slams. There were a lot of poetry slams at that time. People reciting poetry, and whoever had the best poem, then their poem was hung from the Kaaba. So this group of individuals who were ummiyin, on the one hand, that there were people who were among them who were not able to read and write. Ummi also, according to the commentaries of the Quran, it states that this area is called Ummul Qura. That even today is called Ummul Qura. That is, again, the center of life at that time, center of the world. That this is a central point, Ummul Qura. And because of it having this title of being Ummul Qura, then those individuals who lived there, they were called Ummi, designating a geographical location. That geographically, this is Ummul Qura, and those who live there are Ummiyin. Which again would apply to the Prophet, that he lives in a particular geographical location, and therefore he is Ummiyin. For example, that you are living in Austin, so you are Austinites. That you have a particular geographical location. So this is Ummiyin, and those individuals who are in this particular area, this geographical area, Ummul Qura, that they lived there, and they had this quality, as I said, the second trait, that they were في ضلال مبين وإن كانوا من قبل في ضلال مبين. That they were lost, they were perhaps astray. And again, as I don't want to go too much into one of the discussions that I spoke about earlier. If you perhaps seen it, you've heard it, or haven't, then you can refer to it. But the period of Jahiliyyah, the state of Jahiliyyah, that these individuals who were ummi, either illiterate, unlearned, or either they were rejecting the messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who had been sent to them before Rasulullah, and therefore they came into this state of being ummi, illiterate. Or they came into this state of being those who are fi dhalalim mubin, that they are clearly at a loss, or clearly they have gone astray. In that time period, again, as I just pointed out as well, that you had people who were, again, relatively, who had some education. Relatively, they had understanding. Because otherwise they would not be able to produce the poetry that they produced. Otherwise they were not able to, again, to have the poetry slams and the competitions that they had, to see that who is the most eloquent of the poets, who is the most eloquent of the people who are living in this geographical area. There was a competition, and that competition was based upon, again, skills of recitation, skills of understanding of poetry, skills of creating poetry. So if you have this, again, this element of creativity there, then there must be people who have, again, some understanding. But in sight of the Quran, in face of the Quran, in the face of the eloquence of Rasulullah, then that eloquence trumped every type of eloquence. Every person who thought that they were eloquent, that they had understanding of their language, that the Quran, it trumped that. It came and was superior to that. In fact, if we examine that period of Jahiliyyah, in more detail, we see that, in fact, those individuals who lived in this area, they had the teachings of some of the previous prophets. Or at least they knew of them, but they strayed from those teachings. That of course, the Kaaba, built by Ibrahim and Ismail alayhim wasalam, built by them. There's this legacy of that. In fact, if we read even some of the poetry that was written during the time of Jahiliyyah, you'll find that in some of the poetry, not in all of it, but even in some of the poetry, you find this idea and this concept of the prophets, of Ibrahim, of Isa, of Musa, the prophet Jesus, the prophet Moses, the prophet Abraham. Their poetry during that time period. So people had an idea of the prophets and the teachings of the prophets. But yet they strayed from those teachings of the prophets, the previous prophets. And one of the verses that we examined during the Arba'een, verse 50 of Surah Al-Ma'idah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He presents this question to, again, the people who were living in Yathrib, Medina at that time. And these individuals were Christians and Jews. And mostly the Jews, that when they did not want to rule by what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had revealed to them through their prophets, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He presents this concept, this idea, this question, أَفَحُكْمَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ يَبْغُونَ وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ مِنَ اللَّهِ حُكْمًا لِقَوْمٍ يُوقِنُونَ. That do they desire the rule of Jahiliyyah, the governance of Jahiliyyah? Do they desire to judge between themselves based on the principles of Jahiliyyah? And that was the same Jahiliyyah that was being practiced and had become prevalent in Mecca. There was no difference in the type of Jahiliyyah, that the people had strayed from the teachings of the prophets. So Allah, He asks, do they want that? Or is not the rule and the governance and the means of judging between yourselves that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put forth for you, is that not better for you? Is that not better for those who have certainty in Allah's existence? Those who have certainty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent prophets and messengers? So from this we understand, or what we can understand, that those individuals who were ummi, living in that geographical location, Ummul Qura, whether they were individuals who were literally ummi, illiterate, could not read or write, or whether they were able to read or write, and they were ummi because they lived in that geographical location, that they were in a state whereby they were at loss, whereby they were not living their lives according to the guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent forth by His prophets, Ibrahim, Ismail, Musa, Isa. This was the state that these individuals were in. So the prophet, he was sent, and he was sent with that mission to recite the verses, to convey the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to purify the people. And actually that conveying of the message is something that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that he advises, and we claim that we follow the Prophet of Allah, and we must listen to, again, this advice of the Prophet, or this warning of the Prophet. He says that we are all responsible. We're all responsible. He says, Nahnu mas'ool. We will all be questioned. He says, on the day of judgment, we will all be questioned. Even myself, I will be questioned. He says, but I will be questioned as to whether I conveyed that message. Did I convey the Quran? That revelation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has given me? He says, and you will be questioned. Whether you took that Quran and those teachings upon your shoulders. So that means, yes, Rasulullah, we know that Rasulullah, that if he is questioned and when he is questioned, that his response and his answer will be 100% correct. That he has nothing to worry about. Did he convey it? Yes. We all bear witness to that. Every time we make salat, we bear witness. Yes, we recite this Fatiha, this verse or that verse. Why? Because it was conveyed to us by Rasulullah. But what will our response be that when we're asked that since it has been conveyed, now have you acted upon that which was conveyed? And how do we act upon it? What are we to receive? يُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابِ يُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابُ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. Have we been able to purify ourselves through that Quran? Have we been able to learn and understand the Quran? Have we gained wisdom, insight, understanding from the Quran? From the life of Rasulullah, from the life of Ahlul Bayt, who were the walking Quran, the speaking Quran. That their life was the example of the Quran. So have we gained these things right from this Quran? That have we attached ourselves to the mission of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? That is the mission. That is, again, what we should gain and what we should understand from these moments in which we are blessed to remember the lives of Ahlul Bayt, whether it's in a celebration of their birth or whether it's in a commemoration of their Shahada. That we have this opportunity. Unfortunately, we see that, again, some people, they don't have this opportunity. And if you look and you see, again, our calendar of those who, again, who follow the Ahlul Bayt, one event after another, there's no excuse for us not to understand the lives of the Ahlul Bayt. And not simply just to recite the history of what happened to them, but truly to learn that what they lived for, what they stood for, what were the principles of their lives, what did they give their lives for. And if we have not learned that, then we need to question it. This mission that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He points out in Surah Al-Jum'ah, which we are to recite and repeat 7 times in a week, then we need to question it. Have we understood that mission? Have we, again, attached ourselves to that mission of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Inshallah, if we are to give salutations and salat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, then we should raise our voice with salat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Again, for the blessing of the Imam of our time, and hopefully with his hastened reappearance, that he will complete this mission of the Prophet. Another salawat. So we need to see and examine that. Have we understood this mission of Rasulullah? And what have we done in order to attach ourselves to that mission? One of the, I would say, encouragements or incentives that we should look towards and inspirations is the words of Rasulullah about how to achieve, again, our part. The Prophet of Allah, he has done his part. He has conveyed the Quran. But how do we, again, learn this Quran? How do we, again, purify ourselves? How do we gain the wisdom, the hikmah? According to Allama Tabatabai in his Tafsir al-Mizan, and his understanding of this particular verse, one of the things that he points out immediately, he says that as a preliminary step in order to, again, to learn, to gain the knowledge that the Prophet he has been sent to teach, he says among the preliminary steps that one must take is to purify him or herself. The individual, the person must, again, start to purify themselves, want to purify themselves, a tazkiyah. He says, and this is why a tazkiyah comes before a ta'aleem. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. That without making efforts to purify oneself, then it is impossible to, again, to gain and to be a recipient of this knowledge. A person has to be receptive. That if you take a glass, and all of us we know this, if the glass is dirty, how many of us would pour water in it and begin to drink? The first thing we will look at is like, well, this glass is dirty. If I pour water in it, the water is going to also become tainted. And I don't want to drink this tainted water. In the same way, if we are not looking and we're not trying to achieve this purification, of course, with knowledge, and if that knowledge is used correctly, it will serve to further purify a person. But the first step is, again, to focus on purifying oneself, or trying to gain knowledge to purify oneself. And with that intention, and going forth, then you will, again, be a vessel whereby you will be able to receive and be a recipient of this knowledge. Because otherwise, if one does not purify him or herself, and decides that, okay, well, I'm going to go on this track and try to learn. As the Prophet says, he says, Al-ilm hijabul akbar. He says, knowledge is the greatest of veils. And without purification, then that knowledge, again, it becomes dangerous. Because a person will not use it for the right reason. That knowledge becomes dangerous without purification. So the one must, again, make those intentions to purify himself. And among those, the one thing we can say part of tazkiyah, purification, is sabr, patience. Something that Imam Ali alayhi salatu he states, that this is a precursor to knowledge, patience. He says, one who does not have patience will not learn. One who has no patience will not learn. If one does not have patience to sit at the feet of someone who has more knowledge than them. If one does not have patience to listen before they respond. Sometimes we find this trait about people, it's human trait. Someone is speaking to us, and before we can hear completely what they're saying and what their ideas, we begin to respond. Perhaps what they wanted to convey to us was something completely different. But we didn't have enough patience to listen and to hear them out. So therefore, again, we misunderstood what they wanted to say. We misunderstood what they wanted to convey. So even at the very least, one begins with patience. Perhaps someone may be speaking, may be saying something that, oh, well, is this something that is going to benefit me or not? And we may think that, oh, well, it's not going to benefit me. So I won't have the patience to sit and to listen, to understand that what is being said, and why is it being said, and how is it being said. A tazkiyah. This is the first step of learning. First step of, again, gaining knowledge. The first step of, again, connecting oneself to that mission of Rasulullah. The very reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent him to us. Otherwise, then, yes, we will be, or we will remain among that group that are ummiyin. unlettered, not understanding the Quran. Or في ضلال مبين. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in a very beautiful statement, one that, again, it should encourage us to attach ourselves to this mission of Rasulullah, to attach ourselves to this purpose for which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent him to mankind. The Prophet of Allah, he states, إِيَّاكُمْ وَالتَّعَمُّقْ فِي الدِّينِ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى قَدْ جَعَلَهُ سَهْلًا فَخُذُوا مِنْهُ مَا تَطِيقُونَ فإن الله يحب ما دام وإن كان يسيرا. The Prophet of Allah, he says, go forth. He says, it is incumbent upon you. إياكم والتعمق في الدين. It is incumbent upon you. It is, again, among those duties, among those actions that you should take serious in your life. And that is to do deep reflection upon your religion, your faith. التعمق في الدين. To understand your way of life, that why you live the way that you live, why you do the things that you do as a believer, as a mu'min. What is the benefit in it? Understand these things, because by understanding these things, again, it will attach you to it. You will understand the wisdom in the very simple things that we do in our life. Many times we take certain things upon ourselves that, okay, well, I want to learn how to program. So we'll learn a programming language and we will go deep into that. To the point that I can write my own script, I can do this, I can, or mechanics, I can fix this thing, I can fix anything you put in front of me. But what about our deen? What about the Quran? That how well have we, again, contemplated, reflected upon the Quran, read the Quran? The Prophet says, إِيَّاكُمْ وَتَعَمُّقْ فِي الدِّينِ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ. And this is, again, the second part, subhanallah, that when we reflect upon this, that what is the Prophet conveying to us? He says that for surely Allah, He has made it sahla, He has made it easy. In other words, that if we examine deen, our way of life, our faith, that it has depth and at the same time it has simplicity. I mean, it's not difficult. It's not a hardship. But unfortunately, many times we make our deen, our religion, a difficulty for us. It's one I come across many times that people are asking questions, and when I reflect upon their question and where this question is coming, is because the individual has made their religion difficult for themselves and for their family, and they're trying to make it difficult for others. But here Rasulullah, he says that religion, deen, Islam, it has depth. إِيَّاكُمْ وَالتَّعَمُّقْ فِي الدِّينِ. He says it has depth. وَقَدْ جَعَلَهُ اللَّهُ سَهْلًا. And Allah has made it simple. He has made it easy. So quite often we take the part that, yes, Islam is deep, or we have Islamic philosophy, we have things that are very deep spiritually, irfan, but then when it comes to the part of, no, Islam is simplistic. It's something that is tangible. It is something that everyone can benefit from. And this is why he says, فَخُذُوا مِنْهُ مَا تَطِيقُونَ. And take from it and apply that thing from Islam, from your faith, that while it has depth, it has simplicity, apply it to your life, what you are able to, what you can handle. Of course, there's a common factor. Yes, we have to pray 5 times a day. We have to fast. There's certain ibadat that we have to do. But even in the ibadat, and this is one of the advice of some of our ulama, especially particularly to Hassan Zada Amali, from what I've heard through him, he says that even in your salah, he says you make your salah such that you can focus and you can concentrate in your salah. He says, and sometimes that will depend upon, again, your state. A person may be tired. Okay, if a person's tired, yes, you pray on time. But if you're tired in a tired state, then you pray in a way that you can concentrate. Some people, they will pray every single mustahabat, and then they're tired and they begin to forget, they begin to make doubt in their salat. Oh, well, which rak'ah am I? So, no, if you're in that state, the best thing, you pray on time, and then you pray that salat which is wajib upon you. That if you make one dhikr in the ruku, it's subhanallah 3 times, rather than subhanallah 3 times, subhana rabbiyal azim wa bihamdi Allahumma salli alayhi, says, then that's fine. You're fulfilling your duty, your salat. And it's something that, again, in that moment, in that state, it is easy for you. But I've seen some that, you have to do all of these things. If you don't do all of these things, then the salat is not complete. And then this comes from not understanding, again, the rules of salat. It comes from not focusing, not reading, not understanding, and knowing what your duty and your responsibility is. And this comes many times. Oh, well, we have to do this, have to do this, have to do this. No, what is obligatory is this. If you want to do that, is good, and it is better. But if you're not able to, then don't do it. It is best, make Salatul Layl, make the 11 rak'ah. But if a person is not able to, wake up, play the Salatul Witr, until you, again, begin to develop yourself, your spiritual strength to wake up earlier, to pray then the Shafa and Witr, the 2 rakat, and then the 1 rakat, and then until you, again, become better at your Salatul Layl. So while there's depth, at the same time, there's simplicity. There's something for everyone. That individual that we see who came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he asked Rasulullah, he says that, well, you're saying that what we have to do as a Muslim, that if I become Muslim, is it better? And he says, then I have to pray 5 times a day, and these salat, and I have to fast once a year, and I have to go to Hajj once, and pay the zakat if I have zakat. He says, and this is all? The Prophet says, yes. He says, if you do this, then you can keep paradise. So this, but he says, then I swear by Allah, this is all I would do. Nothing more, nothing less. Just what I have to do. The Prophet said, and if you do so, then you will gain paradise. That's simple, but we make it difficult. I recall many times that, and this is one of the big factors, many times I've gone to weddings and someone would say, Sheikh, recite the wedding, recite the vows. So I would go and then I would get the permission, then I would say, recite the vows. I would, again, recite some Quran, which is mustahab, a few verses of Quran, give advice, which is also highly recommended, and then it comes to the vows, this is it. And some people say, that's it? So yes, that's it. Even I had someone begin to doubt. No, it can't be, because, in other places back home, it takes 1 hour just to recite. I said, 1 hour? I said, what are they doing? They're not reciting the act. They're probably doing something else. I said, no, usually our weddings, and for the Mullah to get to reciting the act, it takes 1 hour. I said, subhanAllah, this is the ruling, this is the act. I'll show you. Here's the book, Ahkam. If you want to do other things, then subhanAllah, we can do it. But if you want to recite the act, then here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it very simple. But we make it difficult for ourselves. In order to, again, to attach ourselves to that mission of Rasulullah, understand the depth. Go to understand the depth. Read, study. Gain that wisdom. The hikmah is in that depth. But what we should do is we should apply what we are able to bear. Our duties, our obligations, our wajibat, and then increase as we can, as we are able to. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ, as the Prophet says, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ مَا دَامَ مِنْ عَمَلٍ صَالِحٍ وَإِنْ كَانَ يَسِيرًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He loves. And He wants His servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to, again, to practice their actions, good deeds. To do what is right and what is righteous, even if it is easy for that individual, even if it's simple. Again, falling within those things, the boundaries and the parameters, what is your duty and your responsibility? But of course, to, again, gain that wisdom and hikmah, يُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ, then we go in depth. And as we understand more and we're able to apply more to, again, to correct our lives, to bring ourselves out of this state of being on the wayside, on the peripheral of that mission, bring ourselves back to that mission of Rasulullah, fulfilling our obligations and our duties in our religion, our deen, walking the life of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Then we will begin to benefit. And this is the importance that, again, all of our Imams have also given. As Imam Rida alayhi hafizatu wasalam, he says that it is incumbent upon us, he says, أن يتفقهوا في الدين. يتفقهوا في الدين, again, to contemplate our religion. Yatafaqah doesn't necessarily mean that we become a faqih, we become a jurist, but no, we go and we understand our religion. Take time to contemplate this, our religion. What is this? Why are we doing this? What benefit am I getting from it? Yes, you're getting benefit spiritually, even physically, mentally. Understand the depth of that. He says, because the person who does not do tafaqquh fi din, who does not reflect his religion, he says, يُخْتِئُ أَكْثَرُ مِمَّا يُصِيبُ. You say, if you look at that person's actions, they will make more mistakes than they will actually be fulfilling their duty and responsibility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because we have not gone forth to understand our religion. Or we are basing our practice upon assumptions. Or we don't have the patience, again, tazkiyah. We don't have the patience to go forth and to learn that what is our duty? What is my responsibility? What do I need to be doing at this moment? In fact, even this idea of tafaqquh fi din means in every aspect of our lives. That what I am doing, that am I, again, living by that mission of Rasulullah? And we see this in, again, the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. Imam Sadiq alayhi wasalam, when some of his companions, they informed the Imam that, okay, I want to go forth and do business, tijara. Imam told him, he says, listen, before you begin your business, the tijara, he says, tafaqquh fi din, tafaqquh fi tijara. Understand in depth this action, this business that you want to undertake. What are the ins and outs of it? Pay based on your religion, your faith, your responsibility before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A lot of times, again, if we want to start a business, yes, of course we examine the market. We think, we see, okay, well, how profitable is this business? What is the location I should put it in? But even beyond this, is it permissible for me to engage in this business? Is it permissible, again, for me to earn wealth from this business? Because if not, then if the wealth is not permissible, is not halal, then what I buy with that is not halal. Whether I'm purchasing my clothes, whether I'm purchasing my food, all of that becomes non halal. Unfortunately, this is a huge problem. Again, among those who claim, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, we claim that we follow that mission, but when it comes to these points, quite often we are not precise. And when we are not precise in those issues, and we see the difficulties that the ummah is in, and we ask, why are all of these things in this way? Why is this happening to the ummah? Why is the ummah in such a state? And then even worse, that when one cannot even go forth to correct others. The ummah is in that state, again, because it has digressed back to that period of Jahiliyyah. Has digressed back to that period of, again, those individuals who, whether we consider this ummiyin literally uneducated, and it's not simply, if we say uneducated, they're uneducated to the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The teachings that their Prophet has brought to them. وَإِنْ كَانُوا مِنْ قَبْلُ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. They have not, again, gone forward to understand those teachings, to practice those teachings, to live by those teachings. أَفَحُكْمِ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ, as Allah says, do they want the rule, governance of Jahiliyyah? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put a better system into place? Again, what system do we want to live our lives by? What standard do we want to live our lives by? And in order to do this and achieve this, inshallah, within the next majlis that we have on Monday, we will discuss some of the things that we should do and we're able to do. One of the things that we will speak now that we have just a few minutes, but we need to set a time in order to begin to come into that fold, in order to begin to attach ourselves to the mission of Rasulullah, that we need to set aside a time to do this. Just as we set aside a time in our lives, in our week, and a lot of times we do this. We work, we have a 9 to 5, we may have a schedule Monday through Friday, but quite often what do? We set aside a time. Okay, well, I'm going to designate this time to spend with my family. I'm going to designate this time to spend with my brothers, to go have coffee or to sit, to talk, to discuss. We need to set a time. Even if that time is, again, starting at a minimum time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, again, to reflect upon our deen. Reflect upon the teachings of the Quran. Reflect upon the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam. Reflect upon the ahkam, the rulings, the religious rulings that we must, again, live our lives by. Set that time. This is one of the first steps. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, one of the last advice I will mention from him, he says, Uffin لكل مسلم لا يجعل جمعة يوما يتفقه فيه أمر دينه. He says, woe be unto that Muslim, every Muslim, any Muslim who does not designate Friday as a day for him to think and ponder and to reflect upon his faith and his deen. وَيَسْأَلُ عَنْ دِينِهِ وَيَسْأَلُ فِيهِ عَنْ دِينِهِ. That's good. And he asks in that day about his religion, about his faith. That he inquires that what is my duty, what is my responsibility, what should I be learning from the Quran, what should I be learning from Ahlul Bayt. In a similar hadith, another hadith, he says that utlubul ilm yawma khamis, or fi yawma khamis, that seek knowledge on Thursday. And then it continues with that, uffun li kulli muslim. So either Thursday, either Friday, these are days, blessed days, that again we should seek understanding of our deen. And subhanAllah, it's interesting how this particular hadith, the Prophet, he's saying either seek knowledge on Thursday, or he says on Friday, that the Muslim, that the believer, woe be it to him if he has not designated that day as a day to reflect and contemplate in his religion. And what is one of the recommended things on Fridays? Surah Al-Jumu'ah. What is one of the things on Thursdays? Surah Al-Jumu'ah. Again, this is emphasis upon emphasis, that either Thursday, either Friday, and even if we're not able on Thursday and Friday, set aside a day in our week that on that day that we contemplate, we reflect upon our religion, our faith, understanding the Quran. The Prophet has done his duty, the Imams have done their duties, they have conveyed the message. It is upon us now to, again, take that message, understand that message, apply it. خُذُوا مِنْهُ مَا يَطِيقُونَ. Take from it what we are able to apply to our lives and continue to apply it, continue to improve ourselves. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives all of us tawfiq, success in understanding the mission of Rasulullah, understanding the mission of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalu salatu wasalam, that he continues to give us this opportunity to reflect upon the life and the lives of the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt, and more importantly, learn from their life as we celebrate their birth, as we commemorate their shahada. And inshallah that we will all be able to return on Monday to commemorate the shahadat of Rasulullah on the day which is his shahada, and the shahadat of Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he forgives our sins, covers our shortcomings, grant us our needs, our hajat. May he give cure to our ill ones, those who are sick among us, and if we have relatives and family members who are sick, may he cure them. May he have mercy upon our deceased ones. May he hasten the reappearance of Imam Zaman, make us among his helpers, his companions, and those who sacrifice their lives for him. Wa akhir da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.